Hi, and welcome to the live stream. Today's format of the live is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to talk about the title of the video. We're talking about residency today and ways to get residency in Mexico. And then after I finish with that, we're going to go into a live Q&A. So I'll just get right into it. So I've made some videos on the channel talking about how Mexico has increased the requirements like crazy to get residency in Mexico. And by far the most common way to get residency here is through meeting the financial qualifications, either by your savings and investments or through your monthly income. But after increasing the amount like crazy over the past few years, it now takes $2,600 in monthly income to get temporary residency, or $4,300 in monthly income in US dollars to get permanent residency. And for savings, those numbers are about $43,000 and $173,000 for temporary and permanent residency, respectively. So in today's video, I'm going to be telling you some ways that you can get residency here without meeting any financial requirements. So if there's a myth out there that having residency in Mexico means you have to live here. However, that's not true. Residency gives you the right, but not the obligation to live in Mexico. So if you have residency, you can travel here as much as you want. You can come here, you can stay as long as you want, and you don't have to worry about getting your 180-day tourist permit or worry about how many days immigration is going to let you stay on this trip. But anyway, let's get into the first reason here, and that is you don't even have to get residency if you have Mexican heritage of any kind. If you come from Mexican family, you have parents, grandparents, some ancestor who's Mexican, well, then you can apply for Mexican citizenship. Now, depending on how far back it goes where someone had citizenship in your family, your grandmother may have to apply for citizenship than you, or something like that. But yeah, if you have any Mexican heritage in your family, you can get a Mexican passport and just avoid residency altogether. And that's what I would recommend. So if anything on this list though if anything on this list sounds like something that might work for you, just keep in mind that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on these topics. I'm just sharing the best knowledge I have. So everything is accurate as far as I know, but I'm not a professional. So if you think one of these applies to you, well, then go ahead and contact an immigration attorney in Mexico and see if you can work to get residency through that way. Okay, the next way to get residency in Mexico without any financial requirements is honestly one that I am not super knowledgeable about, but if you are from the Iberian Peninsula, so we're talking Spain or Portugal, well, then they have a deal with Mexico where you can come here and get residency. But again, I'm not familiar with this one. I've just heard about it. So, and I don't have a lot of subscribers from that area, but if that applies to you, you can look into that. So the next way to get residency in Mexico is seeking asylum from foreign governments. Now, this one has a really broad range to it. So, for example, Gavin Syme, he's a YouTuber, and he got asylum in Mexico from the US government. And so he's a political activist, and I've heard his story, but I forget all the details. But yeah, he's an activist doing a lot of stuff in that realm. But also he was having his kids threatening to be taken away from him or something like that. So he came to Mexico and applied for asylum, and he and his entire family got residency here based on getting refugee status. So that's one way. And it's honestly a very, there's a really wide range of topics that could qualify under this. And for example, I got a comment on this channel saying someone got refugee status fleeing Canada and their vaccine requirements there. So, like, that's just another example of someone who sought asylum in Mexico. Let me hop on over to the comments quick, and then I'll continue on to number 4. Samuel says, Spain, the fatherland. So yeah, I don't really know the history of why they have that deal with the Iberian Peninsula, but I assume it's something to do with that. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's any super important comments I missed, and nothing's jumping out at me. But anyway, okay, back to the next one. The next one is humanitarian visas. This is another one that I don't have a ton of information or knowledge about. However, I did see a little while back that INM, Mexico's immigration, had announced that Ukrainians and Russians that are currently in Mexico can seek humanitarian refugee status. So if you're Ukrainian or Russian, that might be an option for you. And number 5, this is actually one of my favorite on the list. If you're younger and you can't qualify for residency based on your income or your savings, well, this doesn't necessarily have an age requirement, but you'll see why I said if you're younger, and that is by having a child in Mexico. So let's say you're in a relationship with someone and she's pregnant, or you're planning on having a kid. Well, if you come to Mexico and have that child, well, you're not only going to, let's say you're coming from the US, you're not only going to save a ton of money, like a pregnancy or like having a child in the US costs somewhere like between $20,000 and $30,000. But here in Mexico, it's more like $1,000 to $2,000. So you're going to save a ton of money by coming to Mexico to have your child, but also your child will automatically become a Mexican citizen. And if you have a child who's a Mexican citizen, the parents both get permanent residency without any financial requirements. So that is one, I think, very appealing option if a child is in your future. Okay, number 6 is to have a spouse who has residency. And if you have a spouse who has residency, well, then they can sponsor you, and you don't have to start in a consulate in your home country or anything like that. You can start the process in Mexico with your spouse sponsoring you and get residency that way. So that could be an option that would, like if one person was able to qualify and the other person wasn't, well, then maybe you can get residency that way. Okay, the next one is, it was initially designed, I was talking to an immigration attorney about this, and he was telling me that the law was designed for gay couples, and this is if you're in a civil union with someone, similar to your spouse having residency. If you're in a civil union with someone, well, then if they have residency, you can get residency as well. It's either without financial qualifications or greatly reduced financial qualifications. But I was talking with a lawyer about this about 4 years ago, so the details on this are a little blurry. But this doesn't just apply to same-sex couples. If you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you're not married to that person, you can still get residency applying under this civil union thing. So if that works for you, well, then maybe check that out as well. I'm going to hop on back over to the comments here and see if I'm missing anything. Mark asked, do I plan to remain in Mexico? I'm not doing a Q&A yet. I'm going to do a Q&A after I finish this residency part of the video. So stick around for that. Okay, I'm just scrolling through here and I don't see any pertinent comment like pertaining to these things. So I'm going to hop back on over to my list here. And number 8 is to marry a Mexican. Now, if you marry a Mexican without any financial requirements, you can apply for temporary residency in Mexico. And you don't get permanent residency right away. You get temporary residency for a year, and then you can renew that temporary residency for another year. And then at the end of those 2 years, at that point, you can get permanent residency. And number 9 on my list is the most popular, what has been the most popular way for people to get residency without meeting financial qualifications. And that started during COVID. And this is Mexico's regularization program. Now, that might sound kind of weird, but the reason why they call it that is because if you're in the country illegally, they don't refer to you as illegal, they refer to you as irregular. And the regularization program is turning you from irregular to regular. Now, this varies a lot from different places in the country. So if you're interested in this, you may have to look around to find a city's I&M office that works for your situation. But basically what it is if you're in Mexico and you have an expired tourist permit, you can apply for this regularization program. But depending on the city, you may have had to be in Mexico for various periods of time. Now, I actually came across this girl's channel, Priority Focused Life, because my face showed up in my homepage recommendations one day, and I clicked on this video and watched it. But in this video, she's talking about how she's doing the regularization program, and she's going to Merida for it because different places have different requirements. Like some places are like, you had to have been in Mexico since 2020 and you could not have left or something like that. But I think if I remember right, in Merida, she says like, as long as you were in Mexico before, it's okay if you left, but you do have to have an expired FMM or like your expired tourist permit. So this is kind of weird in that you have to let your FMM expire in order to apply for this. But if it is expired and you meet their other requirements, well, then you could get temporary residency for 4 years, which can be, at the end of that 4 years, can be converted into permanent residency without proving any income. You just have to pay a fee and some kind of fine, I believe. But yeah, you can go check out her video here for more information on that. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the ways that you can get residency, but they are some of the ways that I know about that you can get it without meeting any financial qualifications in Mexico. Now, if any on this list sounds like something that might work for your situation, don't trust me, don't trust all of my information. This is just like my information to the best of my knowledge, right? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. I don't study the laws every day or anything like that. These are just things I've read and heard and talked to people about. So just kind of keep that in mind just keep that in mind when you're thinking about how you're going to get residency. But now I'm going to hop on over to the comments and we'll start answering some of your questions, and it'll be just kind of a regular live Q&A like I have been doing. Hey, good to see you here. Yes, so weird that it has to be expired, but super glad this is an option for us. Yeah, I guess it wouldn't make sense to call it the regularization program if you were already in the country and regular. You have to be irregular. Why is your face in that video? Because it was part a reaction video to a video that I had made. Is 173,000 in the bank enough for a married couple? So there's a requirement for one person, and then there's an additional requirement for a second person, but I don't know exactly what that is. However, if one person of like you or your spouse can qualify, well, then you can once you have residency, you can sponsor the other person without any additional qualifications. So there's that option as well. And 173,000, that should be enough for permanent residency, assuming you're talking US dollars. And you do it in 2022, because in 2023, the requirements are going to go up again. The current amount needed for temporary or permanent residency is 43,000 for temporary and 173,000 for permanent, and that had to be your minimum balance. Oh no, you're talking current amount needed to deposit in a Mexican bank. I don't know the answer to that, but if you have money in a foreign bank account, well then in like US dollar equivalent, you need 43,000 US dollars for for temporary and 173,000 for permanent. However, that varies from consulate to consulate. So if you call around and search around, you may find a consulate that only requires, I don't know, 140,000 for permanent residency instead of 173. So it just depends, because each consulate can set their own requirements. Just to clarify, my girlfriend has residency. She can sponsor me. So to the best of my knowledge, based on a conversation I had with an immigration attorney about 4 years ago, yes, you can apply for residency as if you're in a civil union with her. So talk to an immigration lawyer, because I don't know enough to counsel you on this. If one parent has residency but the child does not, can the parent sponsor the child to get residency? I don't know. Julie asked, can't you ask for 180 days and tell them you're touring? You can, but you're not guaranteed to get 180 days. In fact, over the past several months, very few people have, especially those flying into Cancun and Mexico City. Other airports have been better about it. But yeah, like if you have legal residency, you can travel as much as you want in the country. I have a girlfriend in Mexico. Which would be the best option for me? I don't have enough information there. I don't know if your girlfriend's Mexican. I don't know if she's another nationality. I don't know if she has residency. So I would need more information to answer that question. Do retirement accounts, IRA, 401k, et cetera, count towards savings requirements for the temporary residency or brokerage account? Yes, brokerage accounts, bank accounts, retirement accounts, all of those count towards the savings requirement. Daniel asked, did you buy your home in Mexico? If so, did you get a trust? No, I don't own my home. I'm renting. And where if I wanted to buy this home I'm living in, I wouldn't have to get a trust. I could buy it in my name because it's not in the restricted zone. Just to clarify, is civil union the same as common law relationship? I don't know. Honestly, I'm just using civil union because that's what came to mind as like an unofficial marriage between two people. So, yeah. And I might not even be using that term correctly, or at least how the Mexican government uses it. Jordan, what's the story on applying for permanent residency after 4 years of temporary residency? Um, I mean, I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but like after you've had temporary residency for 4 years, you go to the I&M office and apply for permanent. Michael asked, still have the Mexican girlfriend? Yes, I do. So if you bring your millions to Mexico, you are all set regardless of age, correct? No. Assuming you can qualify for permanent residency, your age matters still. So you would have to apply for residency in your home country, get approved at a Mexican consulate there, and then come to Mexico to finish that process. Now, if you have millions of dollars in investments, well, then you easily qualify for permanent residency. However, you are still, there's a decent chance you'll be denied based on your age. Like a lot of people my age, for example, I'm 34, are getting denied permanent residency even when they qualify. So yeah, age matters at some consulates, or actually at a lot of consulates. Drew asked, so what are the 9 ways? Either you can continue watching the live chat here, and then after we finish, go back and watch the beginning of this video, or you can do that right now. You can go back and watch the beginning now. I'm not going to go over all 9 of them again. I did that immediately at the beginning of the video, so if you would like to see that, just rewind this video. Which city have you heard has the easiest, most accommodating financial requirements? I don't know. I'm not knowledgeable enough on that topic to answer that question. Back 4 years ago or so, it was Laredo, Texas. I don't know if that's changed though. What age is preferred? I don't know, but I don't really hear about people over 55 getting denied permanent if they qualify. But there's lots of people who are around 40 and qualify and are getting denied. So yeah, but I don't know of a single example of someone 55 or older that qualified and didn't get approved. Retirement accounts work, but you must have 12 months of statements. They only gave me temporary because my retirement accounts only give me 1 statement per year. So here's the deal. It's going to vary a little bit from consulate to consulate, depending on what kind of paperwork they'll accept. But yes, to meet the financial requirements, you need 12, you need to show 12 months. And like, let's say you're going for temporary, where the requirement is having at least $43,000 in savings and investments. That has to be your minimum balance over the last 12 months. And have to be able to show that you have that. So, I mean, in your case, if they only give you one statement a year, maybe, yeah, that might be tough, but depending on the consulate, maybe they would give you permanent residency, or maybe if you could show past years as well, be like, oh, by the way, in 2021, in 2020, in 2019, 2018, hey, look at all of these. I've exceeded that amount every single year. So if you have past years like that, I imagine that would work as well, or that at least wouldn't hurt. And the more proof you have, the better. So like when I was doing mine, I had some that gave me statements I have some accounts that give me statements every month, but I had other accounts that only give me statements every quarter. So for a year. Does Bitcoin investments count for this? I think only if you have them in some financial institution, because you can't be like, oh, I have a stack of diamonds, so I can easily qualify. No, like that's not going to work. It has to be in a digital format with some company. Can you explain index universal life insurance? So, no, I can't because I don't really know what that means. However, I do have a couple life insurance policies, and one of them is a whole life policy that I should probably get rid of because I think I'm just overpaying, and I don't really believe in whole life policies. Um, but with that one, so there's a cash value to your whole life policy, and at any time you can surrender that life insurance policy and get the current cash value. Well, to determine the cash value, you can invest, at least with the company I'm with, you can invest that money in various ways. Like you can have it in index funds like S&P 500 index funds, Russell 2000 index funds, or various options. And so what I think you're talking about here is like a whole life policy that the cash value part is being invested in like an index fund, but I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, thanks for the super chat. And Gail, thanks so much for the super sticker. I really appreciate that. Are temporary resident applications getting denied or just permanent? Just permanent. Yeah, if you qualify for temporary residency, I don't know of anyone who's getting denied for that. I'm just scrolling through here to make sure I didn't miss any other super chats. So just give me a moment and then I'll get to the most recent comments. Okay, I think I got them all. Off topic, Jordan, but what's your skincare regimen, man? Been watching for a long time and you used to have an acne problem similar to mine, but wow, your skin looks super clear now. Looking good. Thank you. Might just be the lighting, but here, I'll be right back to answer this question. So I used this 2 days ago. Kiel's, oh, get in front of the camera. Rare Earth Deep Pore Cleansing Mask. And after I used this, my skin looked way better than before. So yeah, that might be my secret. But I've never done anything like this. I just started. Mr. Snickers or Mrs. Knickers. Are you allowed to travel outside of Mexico with a temporary residency? Yeah, you can travel as much as you want. It gives you the right, but not the obligation to live here. So you can travel outside the country as much as you want. You can come into the country as much as you want. However, I should mention one thing is that when you're traveling, do not get a tourist card. Or like, well, they'll give you one, but they should write RT on it, Residente Temporal. Because if you enter the country as a tourist, like without giving them your residency card, well, then your residency is canceled. So make sure you give them your residency card when you come into Mexico. And like as a extra layer of protection, make sure they write RT on it. So you know that you're not entering as a tourist. There is one exception though, like if you're in Mexico and your residency is in the process of being like initially filed or in the process of renewal, during the process, when you do not have your residency card, you need permission to leave the country. And if you leave the country without getting that permission first, well, then your residency is canceled. Okay, good to know. I was under the impression that if you wanted to apply for permanent, you had to stay in the country for 4 years without leaving. No, not true at all. So you're going to get your temporary residency for a year, and then you can renew it after a year for up to 3 more years. And after you've had resident temporary for 4 years, you can get permanent, but it does not matter how much time you spent in Mexico or how much time you spent outside of Mexico. That doesn't matter at all. Which state has the most seafood variety? I don't know. I mean, any state on the coast is going to be pretty good. Yeah, I mean, any state on the coast is going to have a ton of seafood restaurants. As for biggest variety, I'm not sure. Yasmin, thank you so much for being a channel member. Thanks for sharing your beauty secrets. What reasons are valid for permission during initial permanent resident approval period? I don't believe you need any reason. I think you can leave the country for any reason as long as you go to INM, apply for that approval to leave the country. But I'm not 100% sure on that. And during your initial time, do you have to be in the country the whole time? I don't think so. I forget. Gary asked, my temporary residency expired after the first year, so I assume I would need to start all over again. I believe so. I think there were some exceptions during COVID that they made in situations like this where you could get it extended due to extenuating circumstances because of the pandemic. Or I might just be making that up. I thought I remember hearing something about that though. Maybe they're still doing that. I don't know. Gail asks, so once you get approved by one consulate, are you free to move around to the other states in Mexico, or do you have to stay within the area that particular consulate serves? Okay, so you get approved by a consulate in your home country. So let's just say you're from the US. Well, then, let's say you're from Houston, Texas. You're probably going to go to the Houston consulate because that's the most convenient for you, and you're going to get approved for residency there. And then you're going to come to Mexico and go to the INM office in whichever city you're staying in. So for me, that would be here in Queretaro. So I go to the INM office here and I start the process to get my temporary or permanent residency card. And I don't technically have to stay here in Querétaro. However, I'll probably have at least 2 visits, or you'll have at least 1 visit, depending on whether you're using an immigration facilitator or not. If you are, you might be able to get away with just 1 visit to immigration, but you will have to show up in person. So like, let's say I'm traveling to Merida, and then my immigration helper is like, hey, you have an appointment on this day, like this upcoming Tuesday. I better be back here before that Tuesday to get to that appointment. But other than the requirement to like arrive at your appointment, no, you can travel freely to other parts of the country. No comment says they don't throw you in the clinker if your visa expires, they just deport you. There's people who've been taken to holding facilities that they describe as a prison or a jail. I made a video on this with someone's personal experience. They got caught by immigration. They got taken to the Cancun holding facility, which he described as a prison, and he was in there with people who had been in there for months, one person even as long as a year. So you might get held in some facility like that for a while. He got out in 6 days, if I remember right. Do you have any regrets about moving to Mexico? Yes, I made a whole video about my regrets about moving to Mexico. So I'm going to go grab a link to that video and post it in the chat. Okay, there's a link to my regrets about moving to Mexico. Okay, there, I think it posted now. It was just giving me the spinning wheel of death. What's the most annoying question you get? Well, it's not a question, but a comment that has really started to annoy me is people saying, I miss you with Maddie, or something along those lines. Eric asks, why don't you start an investment YouTube channel? If I had an unlimited number of hours in the day, I probably would. But time constraints. Do you know what the minimum monthly income is for residency now? Yes, for temporary, it's 2,600 US dollars. For permanent, it is 4,300 US dollars. However, that will vary a little based on the consulate you're getting approved at, because the consulates can set their own requirements. Jordan, my USA credit card gets rejected on a lot of Mexico websites. I have the same problem. Do you have any suggestions for getting a Mexico card that doesn't mean getting a bank account? Any fintechs offering something? I'd probably start with like a Liverpool card, like the credit card from the department store Liverpool. Is it worth it to pay for an immigration facilitator? What's an acceptable amount to pay? I think it's well worth it, and I wouldn't do it any other way. Like talking to some other YouTubers in Mexico who were getting residency, they tried it without one, and they kept screwing up their paperwork. So they kept making trips to INM and then having to come back another day, wait in line. Just they spent like 5 full days just wasted because they didn't know exactly how to fill out the paperwork correctly, and they thought it was right, and they speak Spanish pretty well, but then they just kept making errors and just had to keep coming back. So it was such a waste of time. Whereas when I did it, I went one time. I only had to go one time because my guy did it all for me. And yeah, so it was really easy. And it's generally about 4,000 pesos or 200 US dollars. Jada Jackson, just tuning in. How do I get residency in Mexico? You rewind this video to the beginning and watch from there, because at the very beginning of this live stream, I went over those 9 ways to get residency without financial requirements. Gary says, my facilitator cost me 3,000 pesos or about 150 US dollars. Best money I ever spent. Yeah, it's so worth it. Like, Brenda asked, do you know of an immigration facilitator for Guadalajara? I've used Chapala Law. So he's not in Guadalajara, but his name's Spencer, and he works out of Chapala. And he made it really easy. How do I find a good immigration facilitator in Queretaro? I'm going to recommend a guy to you named Mario. I have to go pull up a video though, because I don't have his contact on hand, but it is in the description of one of my videos. So I just have to go to my channel, find that really quickly, and then I'll post it. Okay, Evelyn, go to this video and go to the description, and I included Mario's contact information, his WhatsApp number. Did YouTube change your life for the better or worse? Far better. Yeah. Eric says, I'm a little confused by the beginning of this, but I'm assuming you mean I'm still working for more or less 5 more years. Is it worth it getting temporary residency now? And do we then have to come down each anniversary of getting it to renew it? If you see Mexico in your future and you can qualify now, I would get it right now, because the requirements have been increasing like crazy every year, and I'm seeing like more and more so a lot of people leaning towards not wanting foreigners here at all. So like the more that becomes widespread, the probably like the more reasons politicians will have to make it harder and harder for foreigners to come here. So go get it now. What you'll have to do is you'll have to get approved at a consulate in your home country. Let's say you're in the US, so you get approved at a Mexican consulate in the US. Then you come to Mexico. Just pick a city that you want to come to. You might want to research to see which cities process applications the fastest, because however fast or slow your application is processed, that determines how long you're going to have to be in Mexico on that trip. So let's say you come to Queretaro, where I'm living, which isn't necessarily the fastest by any means. I'm not recommending Queretaro. In fact, like the Queretaro INM office just is known to be kind of bad. But even still, they're processing most of them, I think, in a few days, a week. No, I think it's more like a week or a week and a half. But you would be here for that time until it's processed and you have your residency card. Then about 11 months later, you would be coming back here to renew it. And then at that time, you can renew it for 3 more years. And then at the end of those 4 years, you can come back here to Mexico and turn it into permanent residency. And then once you have permanent residency, you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it would be even better if you could just get permanent residency right now, because then there's no renewing involved, and then you just have it for the rest of your life. Pepperoni Pete, thanks for the $5 super chat. If I'm living in Mexico, will I be able to find size 14 shoes? Really weird question, I know. That would be a struggle. I think you would probably be doing online shopping or something like that. Justin, thanks for joining. Good to see you here. And thank you for being a channel member and with the $10 super chat. Good afternoon, Jordan. Love all the lives you're putting out. Glad you're enjoying them. Edward, good to see you here. Hi, Jordan. Just got out of my car and tuning in. Click that like icon. Yeah, give it a thumbs up. Why not? Christian, thanks for the super chat. Do you see Mexico becoming a superpower? No, I don't. Not anytime soon. Maybe a superpower when it comes to making tacos. Raul asks, how do Mexicans treat you as an immigrant? For the most part, well. However, especially online, there's getting to be a lot of people who hate foreigners, a lot of Mexicans who hate foreigners. And I think the biggest reason for this is the prices have been going up a lot. There's been a lot of inflation, and they're blaming foreigners for that, which I don't think foreigners are that much to blame. Like, they're to blame for some things. For example, in the very popular tourist areas, or like the really popular cities for foreigners coming here, like Ajijic, Jalisco, for example, where there's tons of foreigners moving here. Well, then, yes, in that case, they're definitely responsible for the prices of real estate going up, for sure, without a doubt. However, like in most places, and the prices of Mexicans' everyday goods that they're buying, I think blaming foreigners is just ignorant and a lack of research, because you do basic research into what's causing prices to go up. Like, look at the money supply, for example. The money supply in Mexico, it has almost doubled in the past 5 years. In the past 3 years, it's gone up like crazy. It's just like a straight line up. It's insane. So, like, the money supply doubling alone should, all else equal, cause prices to double. And then, like, you look at the prices of commodities on the world market over the past 18 months or so, like, they're everything is going way up. Lumber is skyrocketing, steel is skyrocketing, lead, zinc, everything that goes into the goods that people are buying on an everyday basis is increasing. And the cost of oil, the cost of transporting everything. So the cost of running the factories, literally the cost of all of the inputs of the products that people are buying in their everyday lives are going up. So is that the fault of foreigners coming to Mexico? Not a chance. Goober Studios, thank you for the 15 something super chat. MYR, I gotta look that one up. MYR currency. Malaysian ringgit. Okay. Thank you for the 15 Malaysian ringgit super chat. I appreciate that. Mark asks, can you work and attend school on temporary residency? You know, I think if you're going to school here, I think that's another way to get residency, but I've never looked into that. And yes, you can work on temporary residency, but you also need to get permiso para trabajar or something like that. Like, the translation is something like permission to work. So yeah, with that, you could get a job. Now, I don't know how easy that is to get if you're like planning on working for a Mexican company. However, if you're planning on starting your own business in Mexico, well, then I hear that that's pretty darn easy to get, and you basically just have to apply for it. Helena asks, in the very big picture, why do you think so many countries are clamping down on immigration? I mean, I don't know, and anything I could say on this topic would just be my guess, but I think there's bigger influences in the world, like from the World Economic Forum, from the powerful countries like the G7 countries, that are putting political pressure on other countries. But again, that's just a guess. Justin asks, can you move to Mexico with a certain amount of wealth, yet no current stream of income? Yeah, so in addition to the 9 reasons I mentioned at the very beginning of this live stream that don't require income or like proof of financials, you can do this. So you can either get temporary residency or permanent residency. And to get temporary, you need about 43,000 US dollars or US dollar equivalent in savings and investments. And this can include IRAs, 401ks, other retirement accounts. It can include like bank account balances, brokerage accounts, things like that. So that's for temporary. Or if you want permanent residency, that number is going to be 173,000. And you have to prove that that was your minimum balance over the past 12 months. Goober Studios with another 15 Malaysian ringgit super chat. I'm a displaced citizen heading to Mexico in 10 days. Is it a good place for me to seek refugee status or residency? I would say, yeah, it's a great place to do that. And earlier in the stream, I was talking about people getting refugee status and things along those lines. Anyone else having problems with video or audio? Okay, lots of nopes. Cool. Not anymore. I live in Cuernavaca. Often it's terrible. I see. One Gary Jones and another Gary Jones. Not me, the other Gary Jones. That's funny that there's two Gary Jones in this live stream. Kitty says, I applied for political asylum from the Canadian government. Interesting. Earlier in the stream, when I was going over the 9 ways to get residency uh, without any financial qualifications, I mentioned that someone had commented on one of my videos saying that they were granted asylum from the Canadian government for their COVID restrictions there. So that's how they got residency here. Now that's just according to a comment. I can't verify the truth of that in any way. But I do know that Mexico is pretty flexible when it comes to granting people political asylum. You just have to go through the proper channels. Hey, Jordan, as a matter of fact, do people accept you in your residency? Uh, yeah, I think most people accept me here. Like I was mentioning a little bit ago, there seems to be a growing percentage of the population who are blaming all of their problems on foreigners, and they are not accepting of me. But so far, that's all online and not in person. Does pension income count as an income stream? Absolutely, and that's actually preferred. Like if you're trying to get permanent residency based on an income stream, and that income is from any other source other than something that's going to last the rest of your life, well then you may have trouble getting that permanent residency. Have you suffered discrimination in Mexico? Um, some, but I feel like it's pretty minor. Like it's nothing that bothers me. Let's just put it that way. Can you work remotely on temporary residency? Yes. In fact, if you're working remotely for, like, let's say you're working for a US company, the Mexican government wants you to have residency. Would you ever consider working a traditional job in Mexico? No, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't consider working a traditional job anywhere. Zach asked, did you study economics or finance in university? I went to business school, specifically supply chain management, but basically everything I've learned about finance and economics was not learned in school, just learned by lots of reading, lots of studying. David asks, how are taxes in Mexico different from here in the US? Income taxes? Well, there's a lot of ways taxes are different. One is that there's a 16% value added tax throughout the entire country. So everything you buy in stores will have a 16% tax. And something else that's different is that that tax is already included in the item price. So, like, you might be shopping for a refrigerator here, for example, and be thinking, I'm surprised these are more expensive than in the US. Well, in the US, like, let's say you go to Home Depot, that refrigerator is priced pre-tax. Whereas if you come to Home Depot in Mexico and shop for refrigerators, that refrigerator is priced post-tax. So let's say you're in a state with a 10% sales tax. Since the tax is already included here and it's not there, there's going to be that 10% plus the 16% tax in Mexico. Like, to determine the difference in prices that you're going to see in the store, that the price difference is going to be 26%, all else equal. So it's going to look a lot more expensive here when the difference is literally just the taxes a lot of times. So there's that difference in taxes. Similar to the US, there's an income tax, and also similar is that it's tiered. And the top rate in Mexico is 35%, if I remember right. And that's for people making, like, any income earned over about 4 million pesos a year, or about 200,000 US dollars. And the lowest tax rate in Mexico is somewhere around 2%. And that's for people making enough money to live in a cardboard box. Like, the numbers are really, really low on that one. I think another big difference is a lot of people here don't pay any taxes at all. Like, they have an informal job where they're earning cash, and that's not going reported. If I had to guess, in the vast majority of cases, like, your average guy, like, washing car windows on the street, I bet they're not paying tax. I bet the person, like, selling their goods, walking up and down the street, isn't paying tax, or at least income tax. I'm guessing a lot of people with, like, an elote stand aren't paying income tax. So I think there's a lot more people working informally in the cash economy here that aren't paying anything at all than in the US. So there's that difference. Now, I can't think of any other differences at the moment. Miguel says, the good thing about sales tax is that it's already included in the final price, no add-ins like in the US. You know, Miguel, I get your perspective there, but I actually prefer it to be an add-on afterwards, because then I know how much I'm paying to the government, and everybody else knows how much I'm paying to the government. Whereas when tax is included in the price, you, as a consumer, easily forget that a significant portion of that is going to the government. Whereas, like, I can see why the government would want it included in the price, because then it's hidden, like, as in, like, it's not as visible that, hey, part of your a significant part of your living expenses are going to pay us, you know. So yeah, that's my perspective on it. I hope I explained that well enough. PSP Bill, thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that. Christian asks, is there a middle class in Mexico? Yeah, especially in the big cities, like the population centers where everyone lives, there's a very significant middle class. Mario with the 199 super chat. How is property tax handled in Mexico? Isla Novia? So property tax, it's much lower than it is in the US. For example, if you have a house worth, let's say $300,000 here, your property tax is probably going to be somewhere around $300 a year. And you also get a discount for paying that early, and you get a 15% discount if you're 65 or older, if I remember the age right. So it could be significantly less than that as well. Y la novia, I am not currently hanging out with my girlfriend, but we're doing well. Richard says the Costco membership is 500 Mexican pesos. That's about 25 US dollars, by the way. Membership works in all countries. Yes, but if you take your Costco Mexico membership to the US, and then they scan it at checkout, it doesn't immediately work. But then I've done that and be like, I told them, hey, it might not be working because it's a Mexico membership. And she was like, oh, okay. And then just typed something in, and then it worked. So after she realized that it was from Mexico, like, she knew exactly what to do. Is this video and chat going to be saved here on YouTube? I think I'm going to leave this one up because I did this one differently. Because I like covered the topic right away in the beginning and then went into the Q&A. So yeah, I think this will be left up as along with my other videos. Are Costco prices the same as in the USA? More or less. They appear a little bit more expensive here for most things, but that's mostly because of the difference in taxes. Like here, the 16% sales tax is included in the price, whereas in the US, tax is added on when you're checking out. So that difference could mean like a 25% difference in the listed item price in the store. Things I found to be cheaper in Mexico: food, rent, Ubers, taxis. I would also add on to that Costco memberships, the price of your cell phone bill. Like my cell phone bill is $10 a month. If I wanted something similar in the US, I'd be paying $70 a month. My internet here, I have 500 megabits per second, and I'm buying the fastest speeds available, and I pay 50 US dollars a month. But if I want the fastest speeds available in the US, like the last time I looked at their prices, it's like 150, 200, $250 a month. Now I can get fiber optic speeds, just not 500, and still have really fast internet for like $20 a month here. So like that's way cheaper. Basically, Almost everything is way cheaper except imported goods. Like imported goods, yeah, those will be more expensive here. But most things you purchase in your everyday life are significantly cheaper here than in the US. Does Costco in Mexico sell their croissants? Can't live without them. Me either. I get them every time. And they are 129 pesos. Remember, that's 16% tax included. So that is $6.59 US dollars, or 659 USD, to give you an idea of the pricing. They look good. Honestly, they're old, and I was thinking about going to Costco today and getting some new ones. Because so here's my problem. It comes with 12, and I live alone. And especially now that I'm with I'm like going out a lot with her, or like she's making dinner, so I'm not eating them all the time. So by the time like they're going bad, or like these are rock hard now, I just like I haven't eaten enough of them. I still buy them though, knowing that I won't eat all of them. Maybe I could give some of them to like security. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Like there's security employees where I live, and like they're always thankful whenever I have leftover Uber Eats or something. So maybe I could give them some croissants, knowing that I won't use all of them. Okay, people are saying freeze them, freeze them, freeze them. Yes, share. $10 phone bill, crazy low. Yeah, so to give you an idea of what I get, so for 200 pesos, which is about 10 US dollars, I get 3 gigabytes of data plus unlimited social media. So that includes unlimited Facebook, WhatsApp, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, and I think sometimes it also includes unlimited Uber and YouTube. And then in addition to that, I get phone calls and text messages. And also, that is totally valid. I can, with that data, I can go to the US or Canada and use my data there as well. So, and I can go there for as long as 6 months. So if I want to go to the US for 6 months, I can use my Telcel data plan at $10 a month and use it in the US or Canada. So like that's so much cheaper than like the US plans, or especially the Canadian plans. My mom tells me how much she pays in Winnipeg, and it's unbelievable for what she gets. It's a lot. Now, here's something though. When I was in the US and I ran out of data, I had to do a recharge, they call it, of my data, and the Telcel website wasn't working for me. But then I'm like, maybe I have to be located in Mexico in order to recharge it, or like get new data, get data for another month. I can't talk. So I activated my VPN and located myself in Mexico, then tried again, and that worked. So by the way, sometimes I mention my VPN. If you want to check that out, you can go to tangerinevpn.com. That's my affiliate link. But yeah, so that's just one more use case I found there when I was in the US and needed more data on my Mexico cell phone plan. It worked. Alfredo asks, going to Vegas anytime soon? Yes, on June 8th. Would it be unlimited if you were live streaming social media? Yes. Doesn't count against your data. At least I haven't seen any fine print that says it does. And I've never ran out of data while using data heavy social media stuff. Your mom lives in Winnipeg? Yes, yeah, she lives in Winnipeg, Manitoba. To Vegas, no, she's not going with me there, but she's hopefully going with me on another trip. E-commerce, thanks for the super chat. Visit Mexico equals expensive. Get residency and live in Mexico, huge savings. I've just talked to an expat tax guy and figured this all out. So, I mean, visiting Mexico can be very expensive if you're like coming and staying at all-inclusive resorts or fancy hotels or things like that. But I think it's very, very possible to come to Mexico and have really affordable vacations by skipping all-inclusives, by getting a cheaper hotel or an Airbnb. Maybe you don't go to the most popular tourist destinations like Cabo and Cancun and stuff, and go to other places instead. Any plans traveling to Montreal in the future? No, no plans. That's not to say I won't go there, but just no plans. Thanks for the super chat. So Eric's giving an example of a possible monthly budget. So for 150 for electricity, that's quite high. $600 for a monthly food budget is quite high, especially if you have a $600 eating out budget, which would also be pretty high. $600 lifestyle choices. Yeah, I mean, with that, you're going to be living like a king. Kim asks, have you ever traveled over to Isla Mujeres? If so, did you do a video? So I've been to Isla Mujeres twice, and if you're not familiar with it, it's a little island right off Cancun, right by Cancun. So I've been there 2 different days, but I've never stayed overnight there. One was like, actually, they were both catamaran tours, both times. And one time I was only on the island for like 30 minutes or an hour. And then the other time I had a few hours there. So have I really been there? I would say, I mean, I've seen it, but I haven't really experienced it, you know? And I did do video. It's something about a catamaran tour. Let me see if I can find it quickly on the channel. I just searched. Okay, there's 2 videos. I searched Tangerine Travels Isla Mujeres, and it came up with 2 videos, so I'll link them in the chat here. Here's the first one. Copy that, paste it here. Second one, let me copy that and paste that. Okay, there's my Isla Mujeres videos. I believe those are the only two I've done. What part of Minnesota are you from? Right next to Fargo, North Dakota. Right across the border. Christian asks, are Mexicans still migrating to the US or are there less? I'm sure there's plenty, but I don't know. Uh, I'm not the right person to ask for that. Like I know the people I talk to here, and not very many of them want to go to the U.S. In fact, a lot more want to go to Europe than to the U.S. Would a VPN work with Telcel card for calling numbers that only work in continental Canada or the US? Or is VPN just for internet usage? VPN is for internet usage. I don't think it would work for the first thing you're talking about, but I could be wrong. Uh, why don't you have the Minnesotan accent? I used to have the accent, but after going to college in Arizona, I lost the accent pretty quickly. So now I'm just butchering the accent, y'all. And now I'm pretty sure I'm not even talking in a Minnesotan accent and changed to an Irish. But just like send me there for a couple of weeks and then I'll start picking it up again. Sean asks, what's your connection to Las Vegas? Seems random between going to Mexico and Las Vegas to me. Anyway, congrats on finding love. Thanks for the super chat. No connection. I mean, I was living in Phoenix for like 11 years. So, I mean, I took a lot of trips to Vegas driving when I was living there. And I just like going, and I learned how to get super fancy Vegas vacations for almost nothing and stay in really expensive 5-star hotels and eat like a king for very little money, just based on all the hacks that are available there and everything. So yeah, I enjoy going, and I don't particularly like gambling. Like I'm not a big gambler, so it's kind of weird, but I enjoy going, and all the videos I do there kill it. So the channel has 265,000 subscribers, and even though I've only done a handful of Vegas videos, the Vegas videos are responsible for something like 80,000 of the subscribers. Your Amex Platinum hack was good. Yeah, the fine hotels and resorts thing, that's awesome for Vegas. So is having the Hilton Aspire card, because that gives you automatic diamond status, which gives you a ton of benefits at a few hotels in Vegas. I'll have to mention that in an upcoming trip. Hello, Irish. Yeah. Whenever I try doing accents, it always morphs into some other accent. Jordan asks, can I buy a Lamborghini in Mexico? Um, I'm not sure if there's any Lamborghini stores. I bet Mexico City has one. Lamborghini, Mexico City. Yeah, so Mexico City has a Lamborghini dealership. I just looked it up. And I know like Guadalajara has a Ferrari dealership. So you can buy that here. Um, one day pulling out of the place where I'm living, I see some like 20-something-year-old Mexican kid leaving in his Lamborghini. So yeah, they're cars that I see occasionally. Patricia asks, did you cover all the Vegas cheapskate hacks in previous videos? Well, I don't phrase it like that, but yeah, like almost every Vegas hack I know is included in my previous Vegas videos. And there's been so many comments on this channel of people saying, I went from spending thousands of dollars every trip before watching your videos to spending hundreds. So like they've saved me so much money. And yeah, it's unbelievable. Like the difference after knowing all the stuff that I know that I've mentioned in those videos makes such difference in the amount of money you're going to spend on a Vegas trip. E-commerce, thanks for the super chat. What was the website to look for property in Mexico again? My favorite is Inmuebles 24. I'm just going to post that in the chat so you know the spelling. Vegas is not cheap. No, like Vegas can be really expensive. And if you don't know a bunch of tips, you're going to be spending a ton of money in Las Vegas. However, if you do know like all the tips that I know, well, then you can go to Vegas and have a 5-star vacation for very little money. I almost missed a super chat. Sorry about that. Have your Mexican friends given you a nickname yet? Oh, how are they? No, I don't think I have any. I think they've always used my actual name. Frank says, I noticed that in Ecuador there's a problem with homeless dogs. Is there a similar problem where you are? In the city where I'm living, no, not at all. At least not in the part of the city where I'm living. I hardly ever see street dogs. However, in a lot of Mexico, this is a fairly big problem. Chicken Marsala asked, do you still play those Vegas apps for free stays? Not anymore. And now it's not that it's not worth it anymore. However, it's just that I'm so busy and those apps, like, yes, you can get a lot of free stuff and discounted stuff. So I'm talking like the Win Slots app and also My Vegas. You can get a lot of free stuff. However, it's time consuming. Like you have to play a lot. So for that reason, I'm not playing them anymore. And now I'm just reaping all the rewards from all the coins and stuff that I have acquired over the years of playing that. Mario, thanks for the super chat. By now, you probably know my name. Oh, yeah. I was born in Queretaro and plan to move back for retirement. What options are available for health insurance? So there's insurance available from Mexican insurance companies. Like in my most recent video from yesterday, I mentioned that for car insurance, I've used this company called GNP Seguros, and I'm pretty sure they also offer health insurance. And there's other major insurance companies that offer something similar. Now, I'm not super knowledgeable on the insurance topic, but there's also insurances you can get that cover you worldwide, but those are typically really expensive, especially those that cover you in the US. Um, but like if you're signing up for an insurance policy with a lot of companies, they'll ask, hey, or if you're getting a quote, they'll be like, hey, do you want to have coverage in the US? And if you want coverage in the US, your insurance policy is going to cost a lot more. Now, there's also an option that's that might be interesting for people. I actually had this when living in the US. There's something called, I think it's Liberty Health Share. So, yeah, so it's libertyhealthshare.org. And while this technically isn't insurance, you still have coverage like you do with insurance, and it's a whole heck of a lot cheaper. It's so much less expensive than what the insurance cost would have been for me to get insurance coverage in the US. And basically what it is you pay monthly dues and you share health expenses with a whole bunch of other people. Now, you're never responsible for more than your monthly dues. And you get to see like where your money's going. Like, okay, your monthly payment was, I don't know what it is, $200. And 50 of that went to Julie for something. And it's kind of cool. I think it's a better alternative to insurance in a lot of ways. So that might be of interest to you. Have you ever checked out Vidanta? It was just there in Nuevo Vallarta. I've never been to a Vidanta. They have various locations around Mexico. But yeah, they look like nice resorts. Those apps are too much work, talking about like the apps for free rooms and stuff. I mean, if you have free time, they're fine. And a lot of people actually enjoy playing them. However, yeah, it takes time to accrue the free stuff. But like with My Vegas, for example, there's a bunch of different games you can play. There's My Vegas Mobile. There's My Vegas on Facebook. There's My Vegas Blackjack. There's My Konami. There's Pop Slots, and I think there's one other like MGM slots or something. There's a bunch of them, and you can earn like the rewards on every single one of those apps. So if you're playing them all, you can get those rewards pretty quickly. But like I said, it's time consuming. But like on the Facebook version, you can get a lot of rewards on that. And you can, a lot of times, just put it on auto spin on certain games and just do it on auto spin, leave for a half hour, come back, and just do it again. So there's that option too. Richard says, I watched some of your early videos yesterday. Your Spanish has improved dramatically. Yeah, it has. Honestly, I haven't been as good about doing daily lessons as I need to be. So, like, when you're working on it every day, that's when you're really going to see improvement. But for me, I got to a point where I was comfortable enough in most situations, and that like kind of made the motivation to really keep learning and continue doing it every single day. That lessened my motivation, like getting to a point where I could be comfortable in most situations. Now, I truly do want to be fluent, and I just need to put in the work. That's all there is to it. Uriel asks, you and Mai think to make travel videos together in this channel? Yeah. Yeah, we'll be doing some videos together, travel videos and stuff. And we have some other video ideas. In fact, today she was texting me. She's like, I want to do a video with you speaking only Spanish for 24 hours. So I thought that was a cool idea. So maybe we'll do that coming up. And in addition to, so there's that video. And in addition to travel videos, we were also talking about doing this one where it's like cultural differences and weird things that have come up due to her being from Mexico and me being from the US. And it would be informative and I think entertaining as well. Patricia says you'd have to type a heck of a lot of subtitles. Well, thankfully, my editor is totally bilingual, so he'll have to type a lot of subtitles. Since you don't really travel or tangerine color, time for a name change. You know, there's reasons why I haven't been traveling. Like, it's not that I don't want to. It's up while the buyout was pending with Maddie, I wasn't allowed to travel. Like I couldn't spend money. So I had to make videos here. And I was the one responsible for making all of the videos to keep the channel alive, or well, like 90% of them. So I basically had to figure out videos to make here in Queretaro without spending any money. And then as soon as the buyout was finalized, I was free to travel again and I could spend the money that I wanted to spend to like travel or whatever. However, then Laska got hurt. She tore her ACL. So then she had surgery and now it's been a couple months of recovery and we're still working on her recovery. Aaron says, I thought YouTube can generate subtitles. Well, they can, but they're not great and they're not burnt in. Like they're not in the video automatically. So for those reasons, I need to have them on there when editing because my channel's in English, my subscribers speak English. Well, there's a smaller percentage who know Spanish, but I need the subtitles burnt into the video. Otherwise, the vast majority of my subscribers just aren't going to watch. Any English-speaking jobs in Querétaro? I forgot to look into Galeras de Cologne or whatever that was. English-speaking jobs, so like realtor comes to mind, someone helping people move here comes to mind, helping other foreigners. Excuse me. Otterpop asked, when are we getting any Baja California videos? Hopefully soon. I'd like to go to Valle de Guadalupe this summer. I'm trying to save up enough Hilton points and Hilton free night certificates to go to Cabo to stay at the Waldorf Astoria there. So those are a couple that I want to do. I also really want to go to La Paz. I've been wanting to go there for a long time. I really want to go to Ensenada. Come on, Jordan, please help. Help with what? Oh, I see you left another comment. I'm going to Mexico for 6 months. I'm a game streamer. What would be the safest way to move and take all my streaming equipment? TV, computers, consoles, etc. So look into Aduana Mexico and read through their policies, because I'm pretty sure if something is, well, like this applies to getting it into the country without having to pay a bunch of import duties. And I'm pretty sure there is an exception that if you do something for work, like you need equipment for work, well, then you can bring that in duty free. And the safest way to get that to Mexico, I would put that in your carry-on, like all your expensive stuff in your carry-on. But as for like moving it around within the country, just be careful with it. I don't know what to tell you besides that. Like, never reveal that you have all of this stuff. Like, don't have it visible anywhere, like whether that's your luggage in your rental car or something. Sharmi says, hi, Jordan, nice to see you in these live sessions. Please show us a live tour of the city. It's harder being out and about doing lives because I have 500 megabits per second Wi-Fi. So, and I guess it's doing upload right now, but even with my upload speeds are 100, 200 megabits per second, something like that. Whereas if I'm doing a walking tour out and about, I have to rely on the cell phone data. I don't get really strong Wi-Fi, so the picture, when I've done it in the past, the picture quality sucks, and it's just not a great stream. And also, like, it's so hard to see comments, like doing that from my phone, because I can only see like 3 comments at a time, and they're scrolling through like crazy. It's so fast. There's challenges with it, and I don't know if I can. Can I get by on 1,200 Canadian a month in Merida or surrounding areas? Personally, I know I could, but everyone has different preferences, different number of dependents, different lifestyle, things like that. So it depends on what you're like as a person. However, $1,200 a month Canadian isn't going to get you residency. So if you want to live in Mexico, go watch the beginning of this live stream where I tell you about various ways you can get residency in Mexico without any financial requirements. When is the next video with Mai? I don't know. It might be next week. I'm not sure what next week's video is going to be. By next week, I mean this coming Saturday. However, like she was taking a little break from social media, but I'll talk to her and see if she's interested in doing a video. May have missed your answer, but best credit card to get rewards with now. Best credit card for rewards. So the Chase Sapphire Reserve is pretty darn good. If you're okay with the $550 annual fee, it's basically a $250 effective annual fee because you get a $300 travel credit that applies to a lot of stuff. But with that, you get 3% points or 3 times points on every dollar spent on travel and 3 times points at every dollar spent on restaurants worldwide. So like those are two big categories, especially when traveling. And if you're spending time internationally, there's also no foreign transaction fee on that. But even better than that, if you use the pay yourself back feature on the Chase portal, that you get 1.5 cents per point on that pay yourself back feature. So that means that you're getting 4.5 times points, or like basically 4.5% back on all dining and all travel. So that's a really good card. There's a Capital One business card that I have. I think they also have a personal version of it, but I get 2 times miles, which are basically points that are worth a penny each on all purchases. And I can redeem that for statement credits on anything related to travel. So I do that on hotel bookings, on Ubers, and that's a no annual fee credit card, I believe, and basically 2% back on everything. The Amex Platinum is a really good travel credit card because of the lounge access and all the credits you get. But again, that's another high annual fee card. American Express also has their entry level Hilton card. It's a no annual fee card, and you get 3 times Hilton points on everything. Now, Hilton points aren't as valuable as these other credit card points. However, if you want to do like aspirational trips, like let's say you want to go to the Conrad in Tulum, like this, it's this incredible resort that costs in peak season something like close to $1,000 a night. Well, you can acquire Hilton points on a no annual fee card pretty quickly when you get 3 times points on everything. So that's pretty good. And there's also other aspirational trips you could have with that card, like the Waldorf Astoria in Cabo or the Waldorf Astoria in Maldives, things like that. So those are some good ones that I like. Jim asked, Jordan, are you going to Fremont Street this time in Vegas? Probably not, just because I like the Strip. I've stayed at the Fremont once and I thought it just wasn't for me. I stayed at Golden Nugget, and the Golden Nugget has an amazing pool, by the way. I love that pool area. Maybe I'll go to Fremont to check out Circa, because I haven't been to Circa since that opened. Miguel says there's no place to sit in Las Vegas. Has anyone noticed? They only permit to sit on the slot machines to gamble. Miguel, I think you should try again, because there's been so many times when I've been sitting at a slot machine when I had zero intention of gambling. I wasn't pretending like I've been trying to gamble. I was just sitting there on my phone while I was waiting for someone, or maybe I was even sitting there eating because I got like an Uber Eats delivery to the hotel or something. So I'm sure you're saying this because you've had an experience where they're like, hey, we want you gambling if you're here, but try again, or try at a different hotel, because maybe there's some hotels that are weird about that. Talking about credit cards, so Edward says Wells Fargo 2%. So yeah, there's some 2%, 2% back on everything cards out there, but I've had a hard time finding a 2% back card that has no annual fee. So like that entry level American Express Hilton card, that's 3 times points, Hilton points on all purchases. That's that's over 2% back if you're doing those aspirational Hilton trips. In fact, it could be as much as like 4 or 5% back. But it's not cash. Now, if you want something with no annual fee and 2% back, look into Capital One. Look into the hotels.com credit card. That's going to be about 2.2% back. But again, your rewards are only valid at hotels.com. And there's no annual fee on that one. But like there's city cards that have 2% cash back. But again, like that double cash card, it has a foreign transaction fee, which ruins it for international travel. And there's a lot like that. Talk Common Sense says, Jordan, would you ever live in Mazatlan? So I visited there when I was younger and very early on in my travels in Mexico. And honestly, in the travels in Mexico, I didn't go outside of the very, very popular areas like Zona Dorada and Centro. So, I mean, I've limited experience there, but the parts of the city I did see, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed my time there. So, based on those things, yes. However, with a big exception, I wouldn't move there full time. Like it just too hot for me, too hot and humid in the summers. So, I live there in the winters, but also like I have no plans of leaving Queretaro now. I didn't really, and then I met Mai, and so that's like a million more reasons to stay here. Let me remove this spammer. Oh, it's saying an error occurred. I can't remove him. Maybe I can put him in timeout. Okay. Edward says Wells Fargo 2% on everything, no annual fee. Business, Capital One 2% on everything. Yeah, except the problem is that the Wells Fargo card probably has a foreign transaction fee, whereas the Capital One card does not have a foreign transaction fee. I don't know for sure that the Wells Fargo card has a foreign transaction fee. I just know that most cards do. Jade asks, "What are you eating for lunch?" That's something I need to figure out, and I should call it a day here and go get some food in me because I forgot to eat this morning, and I was preparing for the stream, and I felt like I started feeling all lightheaded, and I was feeling really bad right before I was supposed to go live. So I tried to eat something really quickly, and I ended up feeling a little better. But now I need to eat an actual meal. But anyway, thank you all for joining. And if you haven't seen the video from yesterday, go check that out. I was talking about things you absolutely should not do if coming to Mexico. So if you're planning on living in Mexico, visiting Mexico, that's an important video for you to watch because it could seriously keep you out of jail. So yeah, go check that out. And I will see you guys later. Thanks so much for joining.